strong.
Hi, and welcome
Hello.
to Funny Minds. I'm your host, Lynn B., and I have my co-host here.
Edward Best, how are you?
And today we're talking to John Leister, and John is an author of over 90 books. I don't know how you write that many books, John, but, you know, that's
One fair time.
what do you put one out a week? And
Pretty much.
he's a podcaster, and he's the creator of Johnny, what is it? Johnnyverse, right?
Johnnyverse, yeah. Kind of my version of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Ah. And he's a Canadian, eh?
That's right. How's it going, eh? That's how Canadians talk.
Good to meet
Hi,
you, eh?
How are you?
Good, how are you? Where are you?
I am in sunny Tampa, Florida.
And I'm in cold, soaked New Jersey.
Holy moly. How did you two hook up?
He's my son.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, I kind of know her.
Yeah.
I kind of know her. I grew up in New Jersey, and I relocated here about 23 years ago because I don't like the cold.
No.
You apparently do.
Well, we got to kind of suck it up, right? I've got 3 scars and 3 tubes on in my long john, so I'm prepared.
Hey,
Oh
listen.
my God. I mean, like, are you outside talking?
Yeah, I'm at a Starbucks, believe it or not. But there's Vancouver. Never seen Vancouver. That's the school I went to when I was a boy, Henry Hudson.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
They're tearing it down. Breaks my heart.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Are you a hockey player too?
Yeah, okay, I'm glad you asked this question because I'm probably just about the only Canadian male that doesn't give a darn about hockey or any other sport. I know. I've been dealing with the stigma my whole life. Well, not so much now, but back in the 70s and the 80s. If you were a Canadian boy and you didn't like hockey, you were pretty much considered a weirdo. I was Star Trek and all the geeks. I was ahead of my time. That's the way I like to look at it.
Okay.
I have nothing against sports. I think sports are great, and I get why people like them. It's just like some people look at Star Trek and they think it's total garbage. I look at Star Trek and I think it's amazing. I think it's beautiful. Even the worst episode, I enjoy. We all have our own little tastes, and I think a lot of that stuff is what comes with us to these bodies. That's my belief.
Sure. I mean, listen, Canada is a beautiful country. I've been fortunate enough to be up there to visit and see it. I mean, it's so vast. There's so much culture up there.
Yeah.
The one thing you'll just never escape the 2 things is cold and hockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
And very good beer. But
Definitely, don't give me started on beer. That aspect of myself is very stereotypical. I'm very bad, but it's my day off. I don't drink beer on the days that I'm working. I just got from experience. That's not a good thing to do.
when did you discover, John, that you just had that bug for writing? Was it when you were young?
When I was a boy, I wanted to be a comic book artist. As I said, I had a huge collection of Marvel and DC comics, but I got lazy and I gave it up. I always felt that I was meant to do something creative with my life. Looking back, I think it's always been writing is what I was meant to do. And then after high school, I tried acting for a couple of years. I don't know how old you are, but there was a show from the 1960s called The Big Valley. Do you know that show was in Western? And one of the stars of that show, Peter Breck, who was a pretty successful American actor, he came to Vancouver and he started an acting school called the Breck Academy. So I tried acting for a couple of years. I was an extra in Rocky IV. That was kind of my 15 minutes of fame. You don't see me in the movie, but the big fight at the end was shot at the Agrodome in Vancouver. So I got Sylvester Stallone and Dolph Lundgren duke it out of the ring for one day.
That's super cool.
And this is kind of part of what has derailed my life for so many years. I developed psoriasis, which is a pretty common health condition. I've always had very dry skin. And when I was a younger man, I just had a tendency to stress out over every little thing in my house. I was kind of a Charlie Brown kind of kid and a very easy target for bullies. I never stood up for myself. And so my psoriasis just got so horrible that literally pieces of skin were coming off my face like a reptile. I don't mean to gross you out. I'm just sharing my story. And so I gave up on
I'm familiar with it. I mean, I know what it's all about.
Yeah.
It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is kind of a cross to bear, and it doesn't do a lot for one's feelings of self-confidence. At least that has been my experience, and many other people who also have this affliction have similar feelings.
Absolutely.
And, I've tried to fill my head with as much positive information as I could over the years. I read self-help books like Anthony Robbins, Awakening Giant Within and Unlimited Power. But the first 2/3 of my life is I've just been kind of spinning my wheels. I used to be very overweight. I used to weigh 250 pounds. I'm a recovering sugarholic. And I just kind of to myself. I was having a good time. But
Gee, I was going to send you some donuts today, too.
I can't even look at a donut now. Donuts make me upchuck, seriously. You can off this stuff. And so around 2005, I started cranking out these short stories. I created a character called Lee Hacklin, plug, who's a private detective. And I was just understimulated at this job, the security job I was doing. And I was just pushing a button all day. It was the world's easiest job. And so I cranked out these short stories, and then I just I made hard copies, and then I let them sit in my bedroom for about 15 years. And in 2019, my life changed. And this is where, now I don't need to be pushy or preachy about this stuff, but this is what changed my life. This is what led me to me being a subject for your interview, which I really appreciate. Thank you very much. What I did was I took a leap of faith, and I reached out to God. And I said, God, I've been hearing about you my whole life. I don't know if you're real. I don't know if I'm talking to myself right now or I've lost my mind. But I realized and this is when I was 53, at a pretty late age, but better late than never, as I like to say. And I reached out to him and I just said, look, I discovered that I'm the kind of person who tries a little bit harder. If I have it in my mind's eye that someone who loves me and accepts me unconditionally for who I am, and never mind what I did in the past or shouldn't have done or should have done, just accepts me for who I am right now, I have found it to be incredibly motivating. So I dusted off these short stories, and I don't know if either of you do any creative writing, but it was the first time where I was able to read something that I'd written as if someone else had written them, because I barely remembered writing a lot of them.
Sure.
And
15 years later.
Okay, right.
15 years later, yeah.
Yeah, really. 15 years is a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I read these stories, and I was enjoying them, and I thought, well, if I like them, there must be one other person in the world who doesn't think that they're total garbage. So that was the beginning of my journey, Lynn and Ed, of becoming a self-published author. And this was in 2019. And it was, for me, because I'm not a very tech-savvy guy, I was alive at a time when none of this stuff existed. It was a very uphill struggle for me to get that first book posted. I was dealing with Amazon, and I was plugging in the banking information, and they were telling me it was the wrong information. I go to the bank, and they tell me it was the right information. I was losing my mind. If I didn't have God in my life, if I didn't have this new mindset that the creator of the universe, for real, not in a hypothetical sense, in a literal sense, is watching me like Big Brother from 1984, but in a good way, loving, positive, paternal way, not in a harsh, punitive way, like Yoda whispering in Luke Skywalker's ear, like, don't give up. Knowing who I was before 2019, I probably would have given up after 2 or 3 tries. Because I don't know why. I just wasn't that guy, if at first you don't succeed, try again. More like try something once or twice, and if it doesn't work out, well, back to the couch, back to pizza and KFC every night for dinner, and just watching DVDs and eating and drinking myself into oblivion. When I saw on the screen for the first time after about 100 attempts of getting this darn book posted, congratulations, your ebook has been published. I felt a feeling that was very unusual for me. Like some people live their whole lives this way. Like someone like Arnold Schwarzenegger, the epitome of self-belief and self-manifestation. They have a vision, they move towards it. There's obstacles, there's hiccups, there's speed bumps. It doesn't derail them, right?
Right.
For it. I just wasn't that guy. But in this instance, I was. I stayed the course, and I actually crossed the finish line. I thought, well, gosh, so that's what this feels like. Have either of you seen the movie Billy Elliot?
Oh, yeah. I have.
Spoiler warning for your listeners. Billy's dad takes him to the ballet school, and the auditioners ask him, well, how do you feel when you dance? And he says, well, I feel like electricity. And that's how I felt when I posted that first book. And that's why I've been doing so much writing over the last 4 years. And I actually posted 2 books on the weekend. Now, granted, they're quite short. I mean, the last one that I posted, Animal House of Cards, is about 37 pages. And Oscar Wilde said brevity is the soul of wit. And I feel like a story is as long as it needs to be. And I don't think very many people in 2023 really have the time, to read these 500, 600 page, weighty tomes. What I'm writing basically is pulp fiction. It's good guys and bad guys. They're the kinds of stories that I grew up with. And they're the kinds of stories that I feel like Hollywood has kind of turned it's back on. I don't need to get on my high horse about it. I don't watch very many movies now, but I just feel like a lot of movies have an agenda, or they're trying to push a particular point of view, whereas my stories are, I'm not saying my stories are better. They are what they are.
Well, how is it going for you? How are those books going for you? Are they selling? Are you,
Not really, no. I mean, I get it. I use Draft2 Digital now. I gave up on Amazon because what Draft2 Digital does for anybody who wants to be a self-published author, I highly recommend this website. It's super easy to use. It's free, and it springboards your books to different websites. So all of my books are available on Kobo and Barnes & Noble and Apple. And I get a spreadsheet. You sold 3 units today. You made $1.50. I mean, I probably made about $20 or $30 doing this for real.
Okay.
But the feedback that I've gotten from all the Facebook groups that I'm in, all the writers groups, and I love being a part of this creative community now, where we're reading each other's stuff and sharing each other's stuff.
Right.
Other groups around the world. I mean, I always tell people, I have it in my mind's eye that I'm going to be able to make enough money doing this as a living. For the time being, I'm still working as a security guard. But that's my goal. That's the bell I want to ring. I want to see a Lee Ackland streaming series on Netflix. I absolutely think that my stories are good enough. Now, I might die being the only person in the world who thinks that way. That's fine. What matters is that I'm on the journey. And this is my message to the world, and it's an age-old message, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves of things that ought to be common sense, that are maybe not so much common sense. Our destinations are all exactly the same. Every one of us are headed for the same place. These bodies that we're currently residing in right now, they're like cars, right? They're these cars that we're driving, and eventually they're going to conk out, and that's it. And then it's on to the next adventure. If you can look at yourself in the mirror, and if you can wink and give yourself a thumbs up, and mean it, really mean it with your heart, mind, and soul, then you're on the right track. But if you're going through a state of self-immolation, as I was for so much of my life, then you better work on your mindset, and you have to figure out a mindset that works for you, that aligns you, the vision that you have of yourself. And when we don't do that, and I'm not judging, I'm not throwing stones in a glass house, because I was living this way for 35 years. When we don't feel that way, we suffer. We can go through life with a big smile on our faces, which I think is good. I think it's good to project that positivity. But when we have inner turmoil inside, other people pick up on that. Most people, I think, are able to sense that, and that makes them feel bad. And I don't want to live my life that way anymore. I'm hoping that I'm inspiring other people, particularly people who are my age, who feel like, oh, I'm 55 years old. Forget about it. I had my 20s and 30s, and all I wanted to do was get bombed. With my
Damn, you're older than me. I'm 56.
Oh gosh. I never want to get you're 56. You sure have a lot more hair than I do. However you're living is working for you. So now I have this mindset that is synchronized, this sort of vision that I've had for myself over the years as a manifestor, being a couch potato. I still have my bad days, as we all do. I still get stressed out sometimes in particular situations. But I will never go back to that life of just sitting on the couch night after night, pounding down junk food and just living like a stereotypical nerd. It's like kryptonite to Superman. Now, every time I open my notebook, like an hour later, I'm looking at like 3 single-space pages. Like, I can do this. I don't claim to be good at it. I don't claim to be a great writer. I just know that it elates me to do it. I'll always make myself laugh. I give myself at least one. I'm now laughing at my stuff more than the stuff that's being made in Hollywood.
Well,
for some
do you belong to LinkedIn? Do you belong to LinkedIn?
I do have a LinkedIn account, but I hardly ever pay attention to it. I'm mostly on Facebook.
But there's a lot of directors and producers and professional people on there that you could be sending your stuff to.
Okay, that's very good advice, Lynn. Thank you.
John, my mother's giving you a talking to. That's okay. You get off the call today and say, how'd that go? It's like, man, I just got to get talking to. That lady with the crazy lady with the purple hair put me right in my place.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
No, I'm serious, because LinkedIn is a very good social media, and there's a lot of very important people on LinkedIn, and a lot of directors and producers and writers and authors, and it doesn't hurt to go on and just, start building up a network. And you can find a lot of people that maybe you can send your material to, And you never know, John, you never know.
Yeah.
Be the right day, the right time, the right.
Great advice. Thank you so much. That's something that I hadn't really considered before now. Thank you. I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah. So when did you develop Johnnyverse?
Okay. So I wrote a short story called The Urban Tiger, where Lee, my hero, is chasing after a mugger, and this kid wearing a mask comes out of nowhere and attacks the mugger. And he's this 15-year-old boy who's trying to be a superhero. His name's Tommy Ryder. And Lee buys him a hamburger, and he's like, "Hey, kid, what are you doing? Stay home, do your homework. You're gonna get killed doing this." Well, I really like this character, even though he's kind of similar to Kick-Ass. Have you seen that movie, Kick-Ass? It's very similar type of character. But I always tell people, never worry about originality. Just write what you want to write.
Right.
And so I started a series called The Urban Tiger about this 15-year-old. And he's got a sister, Molly, who's the urban tigress. And they go out once or twice a night to Times Square, and they try to be good Samaritans. And they run into all kinds of nefarious villains.
Wait, why is Times Square? Why can't you go to Montreal?
I love this question. Because I grew up reading Marvel comic books.
Okay.
That's what I always love about Marvel versus DC. Now, I love DC too, but DC's, Gotham City, Metropolis, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas the Marvel stories took place in New York City. So I grew up, even though I've never been to New York, I would love to go to New York. I grew up with the affinity for New York City because that's where the Marvel characters live. So I get Queens and Times Square, like all these places have all been in my mind's eye. And Times Square had a reputation in the 1970s for being very crime-ridden.
So it still does, but not as bad. Not as bad.
So the Johnnyverse, plug, came out of basically out of this idea that all my stories exist pretty much in the same continuum. I wrote a science fiction series, two-part series called The Taking of Red Star 1. And my heroes go to a planet that's like present-day Earth, and they go to a movie. They've never been to a movie before, and the movie's called They Picked the Wrong Man, which is my boy Lee's favorite movie. So all my stories have these little Easter eggs for the fans. Again, but my hypothetical fan base, if that ever comes to fruition. And then I wrote a superhero trilogy called Morning Star's Night, which is separate from the Johnnyverse. That's kind of its own thing. I discovered that I really dislike writing the science fiction and superhero genres. As much as I'm a fan, because you have to explain everything. You have to explain why people are
right.
And it's the future and as I go, and it's just, I'm interested in writing.
It's exhausting.
Pardon me?
I said it's exhausting.
It is. For me as a writer, it was. I'm not very proud of those books. I'm biased, obviously. It's like,
of course.
Yeah. But I like writing about people that hopefully my readers can relate to, identify with, and look up to. All of my stories, I like to think anyway, have really well-defined characters. And like I said, I grew up reading Archie and Peanuts, and there's a reason why these characters continue to be popular with each generation, because they're such well-defined and diverse personalities. It's not so much about their ethnicity or their political beliefs or any of that stuff. It's about, how they communicate and how they feel about themselves and their little quirks and idiosyncrasies.
I was going to say quirks and that's huge when developing these characters.
I mean, that's what Stan Lee brought to the superhero genre in the 1960s. He was really the first writer who gave these characters very humanistic qualities, which is why they're so appealing.
Right.
So that's my story in a nutshell.
That's your story in a nutshell. So you're a podcaster too? You have your own podcast?
Yes, thank you. I just started this a few months ago. It's called the Johnny's Way Podcast. And it can be heard on either of my Facebook pages. I also and what I'm doing is I'm reading my first Lee Hackman short stories into the phone, and that's basically my podcast. Oh. And then my group page is called Johnny's Way. I have over 750 members now, and unfortunately, there are bad people who are posting X-rated posts on my group page, and I
that's
I delete them as soon as I can. That's the way life works.
I didn't think you were allowed to do that on Facebook.
I don't know. Facebook has been really lackadaisical lately. Oh. They've been letting it happen, and it's really annoying, and it's very distressing actually. But like I said, I try to remove them as soon as I can. So what I'm doing on Johnny's, sorry, but what I'm doing is I'm writing what I hope are uplifting and inspirational essays on self-manifestation to inspire people, particularly people who are my age. Again, kind of, my ship has sailed. I had my 20s. That's total not, someone once said if you've never made it by the time you're 30, you never will. It's these weak, limited philosophies that so many of us just buy into without thinking about it. So, well, wait a second, maybe this is total garbage. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who belie that stuff. I mean, Rodney Dangerfield, I remember reading, he didn't become a stand-up comic until he was 45.
Right.
Yeah.
You know? Right.
Yeah.
I think he was Tom Clancy, when he wrote The Hunt for Red October, he was an insurance salesman. He published that book I think he was in his mid-40s too. We have to live in the moment of our lives. Never mind the past, because when we think about the past, it really doesn't matter if it's a happy memory or a sad memory. We lose power. And when we lose power like a video game character, I think that the temptations that we're all faced with, particularly you as Americans and me as a Canadian, we live in these great civilizations where we're surrounded by temptation all the time. It might be alcohol or junk food or drugs in more severe cases. And, we have to live in the present, because that's where that's where our ultimate power always is, regardless of how old we are.
Okay, so as a podcaster, you really just started. So you're just doing this on your Facebook page, right? You're not really talking to people. You're just really like kind of streaming. Is that what you do?
Yeah.
You're streaming. You're live streaming, like.
I'm recording my short stories.
Oh, okay. So you're recording. Okay.
Yeah. And then I send them out to, sometimes I send them out to some of my fellow writers around the world.
Okay.
Hundreds and hundreds of Facebook groups. I took a picture of myself holding a book by an author named Mike Madden, and he's a best-selling author, and he's one of the writers who's writing the Jack Ryan series, who took over after Tom Clancy passed away.
Wow.
Right.
Myself with the book, and I told him about my group page, Johnny's Way. Well, guess what? He joined.
That's awesome.
Okay, so that's important.
I'm always telling people, take advantage of this technology. You meet the most amazing people, like-minded people who have the same kind of passion and desire to manifest, and also maybe they can open doors for you.
Oh, big time.
And that's why I said, if you go on LinkedIn, you're going to meet hundreds and hundreds of these type of people. So
I'll be honest with you, John. We've just through LinkedIn alone, and primarily, obviously, my mother's on there. We've gotten so many guests on just this show alone. Of wide diversity as far as expertise and stories and everything, and some bigwigs,
really,
like serious bigwigs, like directors and top comedians, and just because they just want to get out there, and it's a very thick, very vast network of very successful people.
A lot of people,
not just business, but just across the board. Right. So it's definitely worth looking at. But I'll tell you what, John, everything that you've talked about is very inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
And being someone who's, obviously 20 years younger than you.
How old is that? 30.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, mentally. But, it's something that people do need to hear, because when you hit our age, it is very easy to lose sight, and you do kind of think like life's over, and, it's a battle sometimes. So it is good to get that word out there.
We're just inundated with negative information every day. Here's another thing. After I reached out to God, I pretty much stopped watching the news. I'm a recovering news junkie, and I'm a lot happier, because most of the news is all the chaos and the calamities of the world. And unless you work in a field where you really need to keep up with current events, I always tell people, if you feel like depressed or blue, take a 24-hour news break. And ask yourself,
yes.
I bet whatever's going on in your life, I bet you're going to feel a little bit better. Because when we think about that stuff, what we're doing is we're thinking about things that are beyond our control.
And then it's all negative. It's a lot of negativity. And negativity breeds more negativity.
Exactly.
And then you get, all this nonsense where people want to recreate what they see or what they hear. So it becomes mass pandemonium sometimes, and.
Well, I think it's worse these days because you're getting it from all ends. Now you're getting not just the TV, but now social media being so huge, and you're getting such misinformation all over the place that you don't even know what's true or false. It doesn't even matter who says it anymore. So it is good to disconnect from all that if you want to.
Absolutely. I mean, I found it incredibly therapeutic for me, because my mind is just more naturally gravitating towards what is within my control. And I also feel I'm generally just feeling more positive about life just by not paying attention to it. It's not that I don't care. I mean, I walk into an elevator at work and there's a screen on the wall, and it is always telling me something that's horrible. like a volcano, and 10,000 people died, and it's very sad. But I don't, I'm 58. There's always a war going on somewhere in the world.
That's true.
I get it. But writing for me, writing these kinds of stories where the bad people get their comeuppance, courtesy of my boy Lee, again, it's very therapeutic. And I think this is something like Gene Roddenberry when he created Star Trek, or George Lucas when he created Star Wars. We're creating. I don't mean to compare myself to those guys, but we're creating worlds that make sense to us, right? Because so much of the world is nutty. So much of the world is chaotic, even in day-to-day lives. You encounter someone. I mean, I work in security downtown. I'm dealing with a lot of homeless people. You encounter people who are just so far away from what they wanted for themselves when they were children.
Yes.
But we don't have to be like them. We need to be centered in ourselves, because we're not meant to live our lives passively. We're meant to live our lives passionately and positively. And what I discovered since I started doing this in 2019 is that what makes me really happy is when I'm creating. I'm feeling a sense that I'm fulfilling my purpose in life, and that I'm leaving something behind, barring an asteroid or a nuclear holocaust.
Oh, really? This is your legacy.
As long as there's an internet, my stuff's out there. It exists. We need to have a sense that we made an impact on the world, I feel. That's my opinion.
So it's part of your legacy. This is all part of your legacy.
Exactly.
Yes, it is.
Word for it.
It is.
Nothing versus nothing.
Yes. Just like our podcast is something versus nothing, So not that I feel unfulfilled in my life, because my life has been full of very many beautiful things. But, the podcast to me is like, it's like a legacy. It's a big part of me that's out there. It's always going to be out there. And the things that I say are always going to be out there. And the people I've talked to, they're not always going to be out there, but their vision is always going to be out there. So it's part of social media, but it's very important. It's an important part, and that's what I think. And you, as
especially to keep it positive,
Yeah. And
exactly.
we like to keep things positive in a positive frame of mind. And we do always find humor in something. We could always find humor in something. And that doesn't mean you have to do stand-up or anything like that. But there's so many ways. I mean, I was watching something. Somebody posted Robin Williams and his first time on Johnny Carson's show. Oh, my God. I was sitting by myself in my bedroom, hysterical laughing for like a half hour watching this whole thing. It was so funny. He was so out there. He was so quick-witted. He was so, people just accepted him for who he was and his craziness. And, he's just one of many people who have entertained the world with their humor and their craziness. And I don't find it to be crazy. I just find it to be an incredible knack of humor to make people laugh and make people feel at ease and enjoy themselves. I
actually tried stand-up comedy. There's a bar about
really?
Yeah, I tried it 4 times and I discovered that I told one joke that got a laugh. Here we go. What's a Freudian slip? That's when you say one thing and mean a mother. And that's a joke that I tell. That's the only joke that got a laugh. And I feel like it's an important life lesson too. I have to go pretty soon because I have to be at work at 3. Thank you so much.
That's fine.
But one more thing for your listeners. And again, this is stuff that people know, but sometimes we need to remind ourselves sometimes, I feel. There's a difference between quitting because something gets too hard and trying something out and realizing that it's not a good fit for you.
Right.
When I tried stand-up comedy, I realized that standing on stage and looking at all these faces looking up at me, and they're expecting me to make them laugh every 10 seconds, I discovered that it wasn't a good fit for me, that it wasn't a part of my mission statement.
Okay.
Right, folks, and reaching out to nice people like yourself who are fellow bliss manifestors, that absolutely is my mission statement. So to people out there who if you try something out and you feel like, oh, this isn't right for me,
right,
don't feel bad about it. But if you try something that you love to do and you quit because it gets too hard, I think, not that you should beat yourself up over it, but again, you have to reevaluate your mindset. Because I could have very easily 4 years ago, I could have said, oh gosh, I tried this 3-4 times to post this book. It's now working, throw in the towel. No, I stuck with it. And thank God that I did, because now I've got like this whole library of books online.
I know. And you never know. You never know where they're going to go, John.
this is my passion, and nothing's going to stop from. I'll be writing on my last year. Herman Wood wrote his last book when he's 100 years old. You know, and those are the kinds of role models that I look up to and try to emulate.
Okay. So
That's
where
awesome.
where does everybody find you? Tell our audience where they find you.
Thank you so much, Lynn and Ed. So my Facebook page is John Leister, Leister. My group page is Johnny's Way. Everybody, please feel free to join. As I said, I write essays once or twice a week that I like to think are humorous, and I like to think that are uplifting and motivating. Maybe motivate other people to do what I'm doing. Oh, maybe they want to do something different. And then I'm also on several other podcasts on YouTube. So if you go to YouTube and if you type in John Leister author, you'll see some of the other podcasts that I've been on. Now, my email is johnleister611@hotmail.com in small letters. I've done this before, time permitting. I would be more than happy to email anyone who's interested, one of my short stories or one of my books. You know, look, I want to make money doing this, but I also love sharing and the feedback that I get from people, even if it's critical. I mean, someone really detailed email of one of my books, and it was mostly positive, but there was some critical.
But that's okay. But that's okay.
Another writers are so sensitive about criticism. I was telling people, look at the criticism objectively, and try to find some. It might help you. It might help you be a better writer. And I feel
exactly
apply that mindset to any aspect of life. So that's basically where I'm available.
Okay. So I have to say, I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much,
sir.
Thank you so much for doing this for me. And we are Funny Minds. You go on our website. We do have a store. We have crazy things that you can buy. But also there are two organizations that we're very involved with, and that's St. Jude's Children's Hospital and Women's Breast Cancer. So there's a big purple button. And it's Christmas time, people. So, you know, if you feel that you haven't donated enough, go on our website and you can donate some more, you know, to two great people, you know, two organizations that are great, I should say. But John, you're just a marvelous young man, and well, you're not young anymore, but so you're in
young heart.
I'll go on. I will join your site because I love to read what people say, and I am an author myself. So, you know, authors have to stick together. That's just the way it is. You know,
I will. As soon as we're done, I'll post a link to your website on both my Facebook pages.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay.
I do that all the time.
That sounds good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So listen.
I have 5,000 friends. Well, friends.
Okay.
And bots. I mean, some of them might be bots. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But some of them.
You don't know. You never know.
You don't know. That's true.
No.
And like I said, 750 members on my group page and growing.
Okay.
Excellent.
And you're going to have another one because I'm going to join too. And it's not going to be today, but I'm going to join.
Thank you so much.
And so to all my listeners out there, again, we thank John for taking the time to be with us today. And I want everybody to be happy, be healthy, be wise, non-judgmental. And I want you to laugh because we know that laughter is the best medicine. So with that, I say goodbye, John. Good luck.
John.
Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you so much, John.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.